Hi friends, Janet the Moline Library here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the yarn pumpkin that is part of our November craft kit. We do still have these craft kits available. However, due to the changing weather and other circumstances, we no longer have the table outside. In order to get a kit, you can come upstairs to the second floor information desk, or you can call us at 309-524-2470 to request that a kit be put aside for curbside pickup. Let's go ahead and get started. In your kit, you will find a brown and green chenille stem, a balloon, some yarn, and some glue. I also recommend that you have something that you can rest your pumpkin on while you're working, and something to cover your workstation. I just have a couple of plastic bags here. Anything that you want would really work, just to make sure that you don't get the glue all over and to make cleanup a little bit easier. To get started, go ahead and blow up the balloon. Give it a little stretch first, makes it easier to blow up. And you want to blow it up about halfway. The problem with this craft is that the bigger that you make the balloon, the more surface that you have to cover, and so it will be less dense. And I'll show you my very first practice piece that I had here. I don't know if you can see this very well, but this one was a little bit bigger, and as a result, it's not as firm as I'd like, and so it's actually started to sag a little bit. Still looks like a pumpkin, but it's not standing up like it used to. Alternatively, instead of setting the balloon on something, if you have a way that you can hang it while you're working and then to let it dry, that would also work. All right. So now to get started, I'm going to take my yarn, and I've got my glue here. You can put the glue into a bowl, but since it's already in a nice little bag here, another thing that you can do is to just take the yarn and put it right into the bag and get that all mushed up. The goal is to get the yarn completely soaked. You want to have every bit of the yarn has glue on it, but you don't want it to be dripping wet. If it's dripping wet, it'll still work, but it'll be really messy. If you are finding that you don't have enough, like if you don't feel that your yarn is wet enough once you've got all of the glue worked in, you could add some more white glue or clear glue if you have it. You could also add a little bit of liquid starch. If you don't have either glue or liquid starch, you can even add a little bit of water, but try not to add too much water, because otherwise the glue will not hold as well as we need. Once you've got that all worked in, you're going to want to take your balloon, and if you haven't tied it up so that it's hanging from something, find something to rest it on. I don't recommend resting it right on your workstation because it will flatten a little bit as you're working. And then you're going to pull the yarn out one by one. And the reason that it's not all one piece of yarn is that it gets kind of hard to work with if it's too long. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wrap the yarn around your balloon. Make especially sure that the ends are secure to the balloon before you go on to the next piece. Again, if you're finding that your yarn is not sticking to your balloon, you might want to add a little bit more glue or liquid starch, or even a little bit of water, just to make sure that it's all the way wet. Okay, and then just keep wrapping. As you're working, if you find that any of the strings are starting to come off, just get a little extra glue on your fingers and press them back down. Sometimes after they've gotten in place, as you start to move it around, they like to come off. Just grab a little extra glue, or you can also take like the end of one string and wrap it under some of the other strings that are already on there, and that will help keep it in place. And when you get down to the end of the string, you want to look to see if you have any like bigger holes that don't have any here. Like right here, I found one that doesn't have very much string. So make sure when you get down to your last few strings, or you think that you've got about enough on there, that you find those gaps and make sure that you fill those in. You want to have enough structure with the yarn that the pumpkin will be able to stand up on its own without collapsing. And any of those big spots like that will be a weak spot. Should also mention, this is a very messy craft, so before you get started, make sure that you have a way to wash your hands without having to open doors or anything like that. I found that out the hard way first time I did this, and I ended up with glue all over my hands, and I had to open a door and put on a mask, and it was a little messy. So when you've got down to the end, I'm just making sure I get all of the little gaps covered. You're going to want to set this pumpkin aside to dry. It will need to dry for probably at least 24 hours. Unlike the liquid starch that we used for the ghosts last month, the glue does need a little bit more time to dry. So, put my last string on, and you can see how this is pretty nice and dense here. There's string kind of all over it. There aren't any really big gaps. That's what we're looking for. That's what's going to help give the balloon its structure so it can stand up on its own. And I don't have a way to hang mine up, so I'm going to just set it on here and wait for it to dry, and then we will move on to the next step. All right, time for me to go clean my hands. So this balloon has been drying for over a day, and because I put it on a jar instead of hanging it, the first thing I'm going to want to do is to very carefully try to get it away from the jar. I'm going to pull the strings away from the jar so that I don't pull it loose because we don't want to have the balloon pulled loose from the strings. And as you can see, this is one, I also made the balloon a little bit smaller than my first attempt, so there's a lot more coverage. The glue that I used on this one, I didn't have quite as much, and so I did have some more trouble with the strings. So I do recommend, like I said, that you make sure that those strings are completely coated, but not dripping. The next thing that you want to do is to go around wherever you see a little balloon poking through the strings, and you're going to push down on the balloon, not too hard, but you want to make sure that the balloon comes free of the string. If you just pop the balloon right at the beginning, then those strings are going to come with it, and it's going to get misshapen and deformed. When we did the standing ghost last month, I had recommended that you coat the balloon in a little bit of Vaseline or oil or something like that. I don't recommend that with this one. I've seen some sites that have recommended using a little cooking spray, but I find that if you do, it makes it very hard to get the yarn to stick to the balloon in the first place, and then it's just slipping all over the place. So I would skip that and spend a little extra time making sure that the balloon is all separated from the yarn before you pop it. Once you're sure that you've got all of the strings pressed away from the balloon, you don't want to pop it because that will let the air out too quickly. Rather, what you want to do is find where you've tied it, and take a pair of scissors and just put a very small hole that lets the air out slowly. And then if you do have any areas where it looks like it's still attached, you can get to it. So, all right, mine looks good, completely separated. Make that hole a little bit bigger to finish it up. Oh, missed one. Okay. And then just pull the balloon out through one of your holes. You might find that you have some extra glue that's kind of flaky. If you do, you can kind of pick it off, otherwise it'll probably come off when you're done. All right. Next, to make the stem, we're going to take the brown chenille stem or pipe cleaner, and I'm going to wrap it around my finger to make a nice tight spiral. And I'm going to leave about an inch that's straight out at the end, if you can see that there. Next, I'm going to take the green stem and I'm going to wrap it around the brown to hold it in place at about halfway. So now it's connected to the green stem. And then I'm going to use 2 fingers to make a loose spiral. It doesn't have to be exactly spiral, but you want this one to be a little looser. This will represent the leaves. And once you've got that the way that you like it, you're going to take your yarn pumpkin and you're going to find which way would look best as the top. You know, where does it sit best? You know, where, you want it to be able to sit flat. So I like it like that. And then I'm going to take the brown end of the sticking out end of the brown chenille stem, and I'm going to wrap it around some of the yarn that's at the top of my pumpkin. And there you have it. That is your yarn pumpkin. You can make these for Thanksgiving decorations or anything that you want. I hope you've enjoyed making this craft with me. Do give us a call or stop by to pick up your November craft kit, and we will have the December craft kits out very soon. Have a great day.